Welcome to the Brave Podcast. I'm your host, Connie Jacob, and today I'm going to get brave. I do a lot of work around relational wellness, and conflict resolution is a big part of that. And one of the areas that I've discovered there is a big conflict is between teachers and parents and teachers. And I did a little experiment this year for Teachers Convention here in Alberta, and I submitted a Disarming Angry Parents workshop. And I didn't know how it would land. But I will say it was very well attended. And that sounds encouraging, but it's not. It says that there's a real problem. Now, I am a parent. I'm a parent who has had a child struggle through school. We've been through Christian school, Catholic school, we've been charter school. We've been in an anxiety class of 8 kids with a psychologist, a behavioral specialist, teachers who understand anxiety. I mean, we've been in specialized programs. I've homeschooled and I have had, I wouldn't say run-ins with teachers because I have not met one teacher that didn't want my boys to succeed. What I found was sometimes there was I don't know how to help your child. And that wasn't to speak that they didn't know what they were doing as educators, but I've experienced the parent side. But what's so interesting is because I work in the education field and with a lot of teachers, I see their side. And so I actually wanted to bring a little snippets of what I did in that presentation to the podcast this week. These principles can be applied to any conflict resolution, so if workplaces, homes. So keep that in mind. But I am going to specifically be tackling this because this is one of our problems. We can blame the education system, but I will say that parents and teachers banging heads is actually not helping the problem. In fact, maybe even some systematic things would be tolerable if we put the child back as the centerpiece. And so, what I want to do is, I want to teach you a little process that I teach anybody in any kind of conflict. I want to deconstruct the conflict process for us all. So, for example, someone says something to us and it rubs us the wrong way. The way they say it, what they say doesn't matter. It could be a Facebook post. It comes at you, and all of a sudden, all sense of reason goes out the door and it goes to the back of your brain. And now you are ready to pounce. If that is how you initially respond, you're human. In fact, that is our natural instinct, is to want to say something back. I don't know if you've ever posted anything on Facebook. I posted something the other day about something, and people were like, posting their opinions in the comments. And I'm like, where did I say I wanted your advice? I didn't. But instead of making snarky little comments, I had to do this first step to get me out of my amygdala, which is back here, my reactive brain. I had to breathe. It's like before you say anything, before you use your fingers to type anything, stop, pause, and think. Don't do anything. Don't respond. I think that's the biggest first step. And that is something that I actually didn't mention in my presentation. And so if you were in my presentation, this is actually pretty important, because in order to go to the next step, which is a tuning to how you are doing and a tuning to how they are feeling, what is underneath this reaction of theirs. I need to be in a good headspace. I actually can't be in a reactive brain. And so maybe taking some time to breathe and not responding right away. I don't need to respond in the first 5 minutes. I don't even need to respond in the first 24 hours. I can take a break until I'm ready to ask myself, okay, what is my emotion around this? Identifying my emotion, and what does my emotion sound like as a thought? And so let's take my Facebook post as a example. So I put the Facebook post out there. Someone says something, gives me some kind of advice, and the first emotion I feel is frustration. It's like, and what it sounds like in my head is, did I ask for advice? Don't think so. And the behavior that I notice wants to come out of me is to defend myself, to say, wasn't looking for your opinion there, or, oh, I was just sharing a story. And so allowing myself to go through what am I feeling? What does that sound like as a sentence that's identifying my thought? And what behavior wants to come out, even identifying that? And what behavior do I want to do? No, I just want to pause. I don't want to say anything. I'm not going to send that snarky email back. This allows me to attune in. And that's really important. But I'm finding that it's hard to get there if we don't pause first. A lot of us, we want to jump in. I would encourage you, don't jump, breathe. And then just take your time. Take a week if you have to. Take a day, take an hour, doesn't matter. But don't respond when you're ready to pounce. Once I've kind of figured out where I'm at, I can start thinking about where they might be at. And so sometimes when people say things that rub you the wrong way, or maybe they have made you feel like you are the enemy and they are now defending themselves, we can so quickly go to their behavior. They're coming at me, they're attacking me, they're blaming me. But if I can go from, okay, feels like they're attacking me, but what might they be thinking? Now I'm putting myself in their shoes. Now, people who can do this are empathetic, but you don't have to be strong in empathy to do this. This just takes practice. It's like, what might they be thinking? And so some of you know I do this post-it note little exercise. I've been doing it since COVID. And I'm not going to share with you every post-it note from the Disarming Angry Parents workshop because that's all of these, and there's a lot of them. It was interesting to hear what teachers thought parents were thinking. Now, when I share this, when I say, what could they be thinking? We are coming at this with a lens of curiosity. We know that we can never actually know what someone is thinking, but we're trying to get into their skin. We're trying to figure out, and it's really not for them, it's for us. It's so that we move towards them rather than away. So I want to read you some of the statements that came out from teachers that they thought parents might be thinking from behaviors like nasty emails, micromanaging, threatening, going to the admin without talking to them. This is what they said. The education system is failing our kids. We are pushing our agenda on the kids. School isn't important. I didn't thrive in school either. You're not helping my child. This teacher is awful. This teacher is out to get my kid. I need to advocate for my child. My kid isn't safe here. My child is not even learning. How are we going to get through this year? I'm done. This teacher isn't good enough. Will this teacher actually stick around? My child can do no wrong. They're perfect. I'm worried about the future of my child. I want what's best for my child. How long is this going to take? Now, as I read some of those things that teachers are thinking, you might have had your own thoughts. You might have thought, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Or you might have been thinking, that's not what we're thinking at all. And this reminds me that we need to come together. Now, one thing is for sure, every parent I have talked to has said, I want to make sure that my child is doing well. And every teacher I've talked to has said, I want to make sure those students are doing well. So we have a common ground. But what we have, and if I did this with parents, what behaviors are you noticing from teachers? I've had a parent say to me, the teacher has made me feel like I don't know what I'm doing, which makes me think that the teacher thinks that I'm inept, which then creates behaviors of defensiveness and armor even before we walk in the door, before we're at that parent-teacher conference. And so doing this individually first, what's my emotion? What does that sound like as a thought? And what behaviors am I noticing so that I can manage me? And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But here's the common emotions that I was hearing from both teachers and parents. Both felt like, I don't think I'm doing enough. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes to do this. Shame, fear, I'm exhausted, tapping out, lashing out at the people that they love. We're all experiencing a lot of the same emotions. And so I find it interesting that if maybe we could figure out how to become powerful people and create a powerful school culture or wherever you are, powerful home culture, powerful workplace culture, we actually have a hope of coming together and actually hearing one another. So, what is a powerful culture? Sometimes we might find ourselves thinking to ourselves, oh, that person just makes me so frustrated, angry, upset, whatever it is. But really, what we actually all feel is you make me feel so powerless. You make me feel like I don't know what I'm doing. You make me feel like I'm not enough for this. And when we can name those things, when we can name that the real emotion that we really are all feeling in this is often powerlessness, we can do something about that. We need to get to this place in our relationships, no matter what relationship it is, where we can differentiate that person's mood from ours. Your mood does not affect mine. I can go to a parent teacher interview, and if the teacher is upset, I can differentiate that. Or if the parent is worried and it's coming out as blame, and I feel like they're putting it all on me, that mood doesn't affect me because I can differentiate. It's like, oh, you're frustrated. I'm not frustrated. And if I can keep that as my anchor, I can remain a steady presence and really hear what that person is saying rather than seeing my own armor come up or seeing my defenses rise. A powerful person manages themselves. They don't try to manage anybody else. A powerful person is always pursuing this goal of connecting. I'm going to move towards you. I find in our culture, we run away from our awkward situations. We run away from conversations that need some bravery, using language like, I'm feeling this, and actually hearing the other person. But instead, what we do is we hide behind our screens, we send emails, we use passive aggressive communication that leaves everybody guessing. Connection is always moving towards. It doesn't mean giving up what you think, what you believe, what you need to stand up for. It means that no matter how awkward this is going to be, I'm going to turn towards you. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that you feel understood, but so do I. That's powerful. And that is connection. A powerful person knows how to release what's not theirs. I always tell teachers that the person who is responsible to make sure that my boys graduate, it's not them, it's me. I'm the parent. They have a scope of practice. Absolutely. When my child is in their classroom, they need to do everything in their power to make sure that they are giving them what they need, the tools they need. They need to make sure their classroom is efficient and safe and feeling good and all the things to pass the test. But at the end of the day, it is not the teacher's responsibility for my child to graduate. It's mine. And to be honest, when our kids get to be a certain age, it's really up to them. When they're 17, 18, it's their responsibility to take some ownership over their lives. And if we've done our job as parents, we are constantly moving our children towards taking ownership over their lives. The problem is that we have a war of who is in charge of these kids. And meanwhile, the kids are going, good, I don't have to take responsibility for anything. Now, I'm not talking about an 8-year-old taking responsibility for their education. I'm talking about an older teen, like grade 12, someone who needs to upgrade their education. But here's the thing, we have to have clearer lines on what is the teacher's role and what is my role as a parent. These lines need to become more clear because when I talk to parents and when I've told parents what I just said here on this podcast, I've had some very strong reactions. They're like, no, that's their job. They're the teacher. I'm like, yeah, for this year. But next year, they're going to get another teacher and another teacher. And at the end of the day, Am I going to put my life and the life of my children in the hands of somebody else? Or am I going to take responsibility over my home and be the CEO of my house and do what I can? It's interesting, sometimes even the way we hear information through the lens of shame, it distorts our perception. All I'm saying is that teachers need to be given permission to say, in this scope of practice, I will give you my 150%. And parents go, you know what? This is what I'm responsible for. We just need to clear the blurred lines because right now we have a lot of blame, a lot of shame doing a lot of the talking, and everybody's leaving confused. And the kids are the ones that are suffering. You know, you feel powerless when fear of not getting it right is taking over the conversation. When I feel like I need to defend, when the other person feels like they need to defend, I have to be right. Now it's about defending my side, defending my case, and it's not about my kid anymore. That's a powerless culture. Passive aggressive communication, snarky comments, that's a powerless culture. When all I'm concerned with at that point now is protecting myself, defending myself, standing up for myself, are these things wrong? Oh, no, not at all. But self-protection is the goal of a powerless culture. A powerful culture is about how can we collectively solve this problem? I know what I'm going to do. What are you going to do? A powerless culture is all about who's to blame. You know, I had to learn very quickly that I couldn't sit there and blame the government and blame the medical system and blame the education system because it wasn't getting me anywhere. It wasn't bringing our family forward. At some point, I had to say, okay, there's so much wrong. Of course there is. But what am I going to do with what I have control over? And now I'm stopping my blame game. And now I'm taking some agency over what I can. And I'm learning my coping plan of what I can't control, which is so much. Imagine with me a powerful culture that says, I will lean into the discomfort of really defining what's what. What is the teacher's role? What is the parent's role? And I'm going to have courageous communication with connection as the centerpiece, with the child as the centerpiece, rather than my need to be right. I want, in a powerful culture, it's about understanding the other person and really determining like who owns what part. And when that isn't defined, shame, fear, blame, powerlessness, it will always be there and it will always sabotage the good hearts that we all have, which really we all want the same thing. When I understand that I control me and that's it, I actually take back my life. Imagine two people who are powerful having a conversation. But when you have a powerless person and another powerless person coming to the table to have a conversation, it's going to be chaotic. It's not going to get anywhere. You're going to see the blame game happen. You're going to see the victim mentality be right there at the center. But when you have a powerful person and another powerful person, you're going to get somewhere because they're both taking ownership over what they can take ownership over. And they're saying they're never leaving a conversation without saying, okay, here's what I'm going to do. This is my part. And the other person saying the exact same thing. Now, I understand this sounds like a perfect world, but to be honest, it's not that hard. And this is something I actually would love to create in schools. Now, I'm going to be honest, the idea scares me. The idea of putting teachers and parents in a room together to really hash out this blurred line and to become a powerful culture has a lot of fear attached with it for me because there's a lot of things that could go wrong. But if engineered properly, If engineered with safety, we are going to become a school that's about a village that really knows how to come together. That is something I dream of. I dream of that for homes where couples who were completely missing each other, that they could become a powerful home, powerful people making powerful decisions for themselves, coming together, powerful workplaces where there's courageous conversations rather than victimization and blaming. This is something that I dream of, but it feels vulnerable and it feels risky. But here's the interesting thing. When I faced that in myself, I'm like, oh boy, to do this, this would take a lot of risk. It's already a lot of risk. We're risking so much by not creating intentionality around creating powerful cultures. We're already risking. This is already vulnerable because we're leaving the outcome to the air. We have no structures in place. We have no foundation. We're just leaving it to the wind, leaving it to emotions to rule the room. We're leaving disconnection as the only option and polarization and division. So it's already vulnerable and it's already a risk. So I think I'm ready to risk for the right things. I'm ready to risk for the brave things. And so I'm just curious if there's anyone out there who resonates with this, who would dare to risk with me to say, hey, we would love to try this. I wonder what could happen if we put 6 teachers in a room with 6 parents with a process of hearing one another. I'm going to leave you with a book that really fascinated me. It was called The Anatomy of Peace. And it was 2 gentlemen. One was an Israeli and one was a Palestinian. And they both had parents killed in not this war that's going on right now, but a past war. And these 2 gentlemen came together to form a parent group that would start to heal families. And they did it in unity. And the whole book is about how they overcame their racial differences to come together to create something beautiful and amazing. That book changed my life because I think we need more opportunities to have reasons to come together than to be separate. If this is something that has stirred in your soul, I would love to hear from you. But I do want to leave you with these practical tips when somebody rubs you the wrong way, how you can move towards connection rather than away and creating that disconnection. Again, number one, breathe and take the time you need. You don't have to respond right away. Number two, go through your own tuning in process. What is your emotion? What does that sound like as a sentence? And what behavior either wants to come out or is coming out? Just acknowledge it and see it. And when you're ready, move towards that attunement with that other person. Understand you can never know what someone is truly thinking or feeling, but try to put yourself past their behavior. What are you noticing? What could they be thinking? What might they be feeling? And start taking steps towards moving towards connection, owning your part, being a powerful person, moving away from blame and saying, what are we going to do about this? Friends, this is what bravery looks like. When I talk about bravery, I'm not talking about skydiving. I'm talking about leaving your house and facing people and having these kind of conversations. So keep being brave.